Morning. A quick Monday morning transfer video for you. I was too busy yesterday to go live and cover the rumours about Antoine Semenyo being a Manchester City target. I just had family stuff on yesterday, but I thought I'd do a little video this morning to dust off the cobwebs as I wake up and talk about football. City are allegedly considering signing Bournemouth star forward Antoine Semenyo in January, who reportedly, and the rumoredly, there's a word for you, rumouredly has a release clause of around £65 million. I'll go to the articles that suggest it. It's come from really reliable people. Here we go. It's just from Paul Hurst. 1 second, let me bring it up on screen. There we go. Paul Hurst, he's a reporter for Times Sports, said City are weighing up a move for £65 million. Antoine Semenyo in January. Story here with Paul Joyce. Let's see if it actually clicks through. There we go. It does click through. Do you have to pay for it? No. It says City are considering triggering Antoine Semenyo £65 million release clause in January. The Times learned that City are among a number of clubs monitoring Semenyo's situation and could buy the exciting Bournemouth winger when the transfer window opens on New Year's Day. Liverpool been linked the 25-year-old. They had no plan to enter the winter transfer window after spending more than £400 million in the summer. I don't think they'll go for it. It's too much money. I said City have not yet fully committed to making a move for Semenyo. Liverpool, that is. Liverpool, I can't see spending £65 million in January. But there's a feeling in some quarters that his arrival in January could give them the edge they need to reduce the gap between themselves and the Premier League leaders Arsenal in the second half of the campaign. He joined from Bristol for £10 million in January 23. Has underlined his status as one of the Premier League's most dangerous attackers this season by scoring 6 goals and got 3 assists in 12 appearances. Guardiola likes a versatile player, so Semenyo fits that category. Operating on both wings for Bournemouth and occasionally played up front for Areola's team, who are hovering around mid-table despite not winning any of the past 4 matches. 11 goals last season. Against us, of course, he scored as well. And Guardiola has talked about a lack of goal scorers recently. So this is going to be interesting. Also, we've got Omar Mamouche going as well at the start of the year due to the African nations. So we could be losing Mamouche for a while. Semenyo won't be gone because Ghana haven't qualified, so he won't be there, so he'll be available. So there is that to consider as well. So this link, right, I'll be honest with you. The first time I heard this link, I actually was a bit confused because I was thinking, well, he's another like transitional sort of player who's best in a team that's more direct, and does he have what it takes against a low block despite his obvious quality? And he's a guy who seemingly does favour the left-hand side, and it's just... Is it one of those things again where we're signing a player potentially, if we do sign a player that is, who isn't necessarily the exact fit that we need this second, because he is a sort of change of what we're going for. But then I thought, in my head, maybe I'm just overthinking it. Well, then I started to list the positives, of Semenyo. At that point, you start to realise, well, why this is why we could go for him. Semenyo is obviously incredibly comfortable on the left. He's also incredibly comfortable on the right. Semenyo is very aggressive. He works insanely hard with the press, which would be good because I think one thing our press is lacking is great presses. We're not very good at that. And I think Semenyo definitely raises our ability that way. Semenyo is very, very diligent going backwards towards his own goal. He's incredibly hard working. He's also two-footed, very two-footed. He's a wonderful striker with the ball with either foot, and he scores goals as well. And Guardiola, this is the quote that made me think about it this morning, actually. So let me just find this quote here from Guardiola. So Guardiola talked a bit about Phil Foden. He said, I'm in agreement with Tuchel about Foden playing centrally. He said, I like to play Phil behind the striker, close to the box. The guys who have this sense of goal have to be close to goal, but sometimes he can be wide and another player more inside. But I like Phil central, but he can play as a winger. But for me as a winger, Savio, Jeremy, and even Oscar have attributes because they don't have the sense of goal. And if we lack a little bit of sense of goal, I have to bring people close to Erling, like Omar is the case, or that position. I like the players to arrive and have the feeling they can score. The big teams score with many, many players. If just as Erling is the guy who scores goals, we'll struggle. The big teams score with many, many players. He's just said our 3 wingers don't have a sense of goal. He's just said our 3 wingers don't have a sense of goal. And he's just said big teams have players who score score goals, many, many players. Like, if that isn't a really obvious message that we need goal scorers, and that he's losing a bit of confidence in Semenyo and Bob and so on. And at least Doku's, to be fair to him, he's creating loads. Doku's one of the most creative players in the league right now, so he's doing his bit on that way. And he's scored a couple of goals this season. But that isn't a message, in my opinion, that we are considering options for more goals, and I don't know what it is. Those two paragraphs immediately make this potential transfer way, way, way more viable. Because Semenyo is a goal scorer, and this is what we're lacking right now. And you're right, they are quite young. Naveen in the chat, I don't necessarily feel they are killers. I think when a player's got a sense of goal, like Phil Foden, for example. I mean, look at Phil Foden. Let's bring up Phil Foden's stats. I know he wasn't, banging loads of goals in always, but this is Phil Foden, throughout his City career. This is Phil Foden throughout his City career, 7 goals, 8 goals, 16, 14, 15, 27, 13. That was Phil Foden. Look, he's 25 now, so go back 5-6 years ago. He was scoring 7-8 goals as a teenager in this Manchester City squad. 16 goals when he was 16 goals in 2020. In 2020, Phil Foden would have been 20 years old, 2 years younger. So the point is there. It's very obvious that some players have a sense of goal and some players don't. Phil Foden has a sense of goal. He's a goal scorer. Well, you just pointed out, Naveen said, yeah, but Phil Foden was necessarily known for his goals. Well, that's the point Guardiola's making. I think it's very obvious that some players aren't goal scorers and some people are goal scorers. And he's the anomaly, but that's the level we have to aim for. And Guardiola, regardless of what we feel, Guardiola clearly wants players who've gone to score goals. Because all our wingers have scored goals previously, even when they were young. Sterling came in at like 20 years old and scored goals for Manchester City. Asani came in at 20 years old and scored goals for Manchester City. Like, we can't use the age thing, unfortunately. Like, I understand, but Oscar Bob is 22 years old. Like, he's 2 years younger than we signed Sterling and Sane. And I really like Oscar Bob, but he hasn't shown anything yet. He's going to be a goal scorer. And that's absolutely fair. Alvarez came in at 19, 20 years old and scored goals. Some people are just goal scorers. Cole Palmer scored a few goals when he was playing as well for the academy side, for the first team. Not lots, but he scored goals. Some people just are goal scorers, and some people aren't. I don't know what it is. Sane's not an outlier at all. He's not an outlier because we've just named Foden at 20, Sterling at 20, Sane at 20 scoring goals. Palmer scoring goals at 20. Like we can keep saying they're outliers. Well, you can say they're an outlier, but we want the outlier. We want the player who's better than the usual, who scores goals at 20. So I think that's where Guardiola's at, All these arguments is essentially, well, they've got young and they've got talent. Maybe they just don't want to wait around for it. Maybe Guardiola wants players. Look, great goal scorers are scoring goals at 20, 21 years old. That's a fact. They are. Not every single one, no, but usually it's a very good indicator, And I think he's looking at Semenyo and Bob right now and getting frustrated by the fact that they show no signs of scoring goals, which to me suggests that there is something in the Semenyo rumours. Semenyo, he's homegrown as well, which is really interesting. I mean, I'll show you his development as a footballer, Semenyo, where he's come from. So of course he was born in Chelsea. So he's a local, he's born in England, plays for Ghana, but he is homegrown because he spent all his career in England, born in England as well. From Bristol originally, scored a few goals at Bristol, and then Bournemouth very smartly signed him. And he's never been a great goal scorer for what I say, but he scored 6 goals in 12 games, 13 last season. I would say he's not a great goal scorer, Semenyo. He's scored goals this season and he's on his way up, but he's not a great goal scorer. He's not like he's scoring 20 odd, but he's also playing for Bournemouth at the same time. But I will say, when you look at the quality of his finishing this season, it's really, 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 really high, His numbers aren't special, but he's also playing for Bournemouth, which is, I think, a fair thing to point out. And I think it's fair to say he should get more chances and more touches of the ball at Manchester City than he does at Bournemouth. I do wonder what we'd mean, if he came in Where would it leave a few players? Where would it leave Bob and I think Marmoush? Marmoush is a very similar signing on that front. Yeah, you're right. By the way, Teal said even McAtee off the bench was a better goal scorer than Bob and Semenyo. He was. That's a cracking example, Teal. McAtee is very obviously a goal scorer. Even if you don't think he was good enough, McAtee scores goals. Some people just have that sense of, I don't know what it is, but their movement, their confidence in front of goal. McAtee scored goals for City, and they might have been tap-ins, but Semenyo can't manage a tap-in. Like, some people just score goals. Like, McAtee for Man City, he scored 7 goals last season, McAtee, in all competitions. Like, Semenyo and Bob and, Doku, I don't think they managed 7 goals between them this season, have they? And McAtee was a rotation player. So that's some people just score goals. And, I think he scored... Yeah, here we go. So, in McAtee has scored 20 goals in 114 games so far in his professional career. He's a goal scorer. He clearly is. And that's it. Some people have it. That's a really good point, Teal. So... I think there's a good thing about Semenyo. He can play on the right. He does like to keep that width. He is aggressive on that side. I do, it is interesting. It remains to be seen where we fit in. But I do like the idea of having, Doku and Semenyo running at people. I wonder where Shirky goes in that instance. I wonder where Semenyo, Marmoush goes. But he is a quality player. He's really hard working. He's rapid. He can dribble really well. He's physically very, very impressive. He does remind me a little bit of, when I think of players that are sort of similar, he's a bit Sadio Mane. And Mane was actually one of my favourite Liverpool players. I say favourite players if I have favourite Liverpool players. But Mane, I thought, was always the one I was most scared of when we played Liverpool. I thought, obviously, Salah was probably more productive in terms of numbers. But Mane was the one we struggled to handle the most. Because he was so aggressive, his movement, his physicality. Just a really imposing player. And I think, look, Semenyo could be a really smart signing. And I do think we got an over-reliance on Haaland and so on. And I do wonder if the pace and the movement of someone like Semenyo... I mean, there's a bit of Sterling on the right when Semenyo plays on that position, so he could play out there. Yeah, and I'm watching some comps as I do this just to remind myself of his talent. It is interesting, that we are obviously shuffling around and looking for different options, because I think it's very obvious. I said after the Leeds game that I feel like I am. Look, I've calmed down a lot after the Leeds game. I still think we need to remind ourselves that we are third in the table. All this stuff about us being shit, we're obviously not shit. You can't be third and be shit. Maybe compared to our previous standards, you might say we are. But we're clearly not a shit side. We're clearly a side that we're, even with players, if you think we're shit, are we second now? Are we actually second? I don't know where we are. Let's have a look. We're second still. There we go. We're second still. So we're second, 5 points behind this brilliant Arsenal side, and we're shit apparently. So the point is, despite our problems, we're still second in the league. What does that tell you? Second most wins in the Premier League, says Bailey as well. There you go, man. I guess perspective is everything. Despite the obvious struggles, despite the obvious weaknesses, and I think there are weaknesses, they are, things we need to improve on. We're still second in the league. So for a bunch of shit players, Guardiola and the team not doing too badly, I know we've not been perfect, and I know there's weaknesses, but you can, in my opinion, there's still tweaks to be had. There's still players to come into the side that'll improve us. Just woke up. No, I woke up about 7:30, mate. 7:30. But I've got a bit of a croaky voice though. I've 4 week cold because the bloody children never let me sleep. But yeah, I'm all right, mate. I'm a bit groggy, but yeah, you look at the areas that we need to improve in. If we can tighten it up a little bit, if we can add an Elliot Anderson type in the summer, we can add a Semenyo for more goals, and all of a sudden you think, well, there's our out of play massively better. Imagine Elliot Anderson. I know people don't rate him, but I really, really rate Elliot Anderson. I think he's a really impressive player. I think he's off the ball work is fantastic. And then you add Semenyo, who's off the ball work is fantastic. Both aggressive, confident winners for what it's worth, both winners. Then all of a sudden you think, well, the team's shifted a little bit there. Then you add a right back. And all you think, well, actually, that team's shifted massively. Imagine Elliot Anderson, you get a top right back, and you get Semenyo, and all of a sudden you think, well, this team's just shifted. Way more physical, aggressive, confident, young, homegrown, assertive. I can see how things can shift a little bit. Then hopefully you add a little bit more, quality, 1 or 2 players. And I do think the team does need some fine tuning still. We're not quite there yet. I do think there's a good chance we went for it with. Sorry, I just got distracted by an email then. Yeah, we went for it with a few changes. In terms of in January transfer window in the summer, we bought an awful lot of players. Some of them, if we're being honest, were sort of young, were punts. Not every single player around 30, 40 million is going to come off. And I think that's fine. But if you get half of them to land, some end up staying or moving on or getting better, whatever, that's fine. But I think we are very much still in transition. Because we sign loads of players, we presume that's it. No, I think we are going to sign more. I think we're going to sign another 3 or 4. Might sign 1 or 2 in January, and we might sign another 3 or 4 next summer. And I think more people are going to move on. Ake's going to move on. Kovacic is going to move on. Bernardo's going to move on. Stones is going to move on. There are 4 already that are going to move on. Semenyo will move on. There's 5 people from the squad that are going to move on. We're going to sign more people. So we're going to need more players. And I think Semenyo will go, in my opinion, in the summer. Vitor Reis will come in. Vitor Reis looks fantastic, but then after that, maybe Juma Bar might come back in with the offload. But we're going to sign a winger. Could be Semenyo. We're going to sign a midfielder. Kovacic and Bernardo will go. Could be Elliot Anderson. And you see how the squad's going to shift again. And I think if we can stay up there, we'll see how it goes. We'll see. But Semenyo, yeah, is an interesting one. Guys, it's just a quick video. I've got a call at 10 o'clock, so I'm going to go get ready for that call as well. But I wanted to talk about Semenyo. And I was a bit confused because he said he's a transition winger, not a possession-based winger, and he's more left-sided favoured. But the more I thought about it, actually, he'll bring loads. He'll bring confidence. He'll bring goals. He's 2-footed. He can play on the right. And I didn't realise how much he's played on the right, by the way. He has played on the right an awful lot this season, in general for Bournemouth, and he's been really effective there. So, I saw this graphic here. As you can see there, as a right winger, 56 games, scored 14 goals. Left winger, 55 games, scored 10 goals. He's effective either way, really. He can play as a centre forward too. Look, that is a player who's very comfortable. We've got a lot of option there, and I do feel like that shows you Semenyo can play anywhere, either way, and I am comfortable with that. I mean, 65 million as well. We'll see. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you want Semenyo in the team. What's your ideal summer makeover? How does it look? And yeah, I think we need to calm down as a fan base, myself included. Love you all. See you later for another video. Bye-bye. I'll do a preview later for tomorrow's game. In a bit, guys. Bye-bye.